Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "My company agreed to pay for very expensive transport instead of just letting me commute easily." So a few years ago, I worked for this dispatch agency that would contract me out to various locations. They paid me in peanuts and treated me like subhuman dirt. I'd even had to go so far as to be identified by a number rather than name when I spoke with management, which I hear has just kinda collapsed in on itself due to just obviously pathetic management skills. Anyway, so this one place they contracted me out to was located far away from any train station or bus stop, and I don't own a car, so I asked how I should get there. They told me, and I confirmed with the client, that there was a bus from a train station owned by the client that took employees and visitors there. For about the first month I took that bus every morning around 7 a.m., even though I didn't actually start work until 9:30 or 10, but that was the only bus, so I had no choice. Suddenly one day the managers shuffled around a bunch of employees for some reason, and I got stuck with this new scheduler who was, I think, fresh out of college and had no clue what he was doing. For some reason he told me that I had to stop taking that bus because it was owned by the client and I don't work for the client. I work for the company. They love to remind us of this. The client even said they didn't mind if I took their bus, as that just made the most logical sense, but no. I told them I could walk from the train station, but it was going to take me an hour or two, and the only feasible transport besides the bus was to take a taxi, which would be a $1.40 trip one way, so to get back ends up $1.80 a day on taxis. Yeah, they're expensive in this country. He told me to take a taxi. I straight up told him, "You don't pay me enough to be able to afford a taxi." I was thinking they would capitulate and let me take the bus, but as if to pathetically assert dominance, they actually gave me an allowance for the taxis from then on. And since I could take a taxi whenever instead of waiting for the bus, I showed up to the client at 9:30 with 2 extra hours of sleep. Was actually a pretty nice setup. Next one is titled, "Then there was that time I was in a conference call while duck hunting." This took place maybe 2008. Was mid-00s for sure. I was a manager but had arranged time off to go duck hunting with friends. The day before I was to leave was pulled into a meeting due to an emergency, and there would be a war room conference call with other offices the day after. I had nothing to contribute nor deliver for this meeting. It was merely higher pay grade than me folks hashing out a problem and then issuing directives. I said no, I'm not canceling a trip I planned for over a year with friends I hadn't seen in an incredibly long time to sit and listen to people argue. I got different replies from my manager and his manager. By different, my manager was pleading. His manager basically said, "Show up or you're fired." I said fine, I'll be on the conference call. Turns out where we were hunting, I had cell signal. So I called in. During the meeting my manager's manager called on me specifically to contribute. I figured he was making a point. I was talking and said, "Hang on a second my friends," and I started shooting. It was quick, there were 4 of us, 2 12-gauge shots each. I went back on to finish talking. I was asked, was there shooting? I said, "Yep, I'm duck hunting." Our original VP asked, "Why are you on the call if you were off hunting?" My reply was, "I was told it's mandatory or I'm fired." My manager's manager began backpedaling and started saying I was a team player and knew the benefit, etc. Basically, he was told, "We'll take this offline." Next one is titled, "Pass on your bogus excuse." Okay. Please excuse the lengthy setup for this. I was a medic in a light infantry battalion in the U.S. Army in the early 90s. In our infantry battalion, there were 2 sets of medics in headquarters company who all belonged to the same platoon. Most of the squads in the platoon were in the first set and were referred to as line medics. They were constantly lent out to the various companies in the battalion for field exercises and so forth. For all practical purposes, line medics did just about everything the other infantrymen did out in the field. For the most part, this entailed trudging through snow for long distances, while leaving our belongings around on our backs in a rucksack and pulling a sled with an Arctic 10-man tent. The light in light infantry alludes to the fact that we traveled light enough to not need a vehicle. In reality, there was nothing light about it. One squad in the medical platoon permanently remained with headquarters. In the field, they were in charge of maintaining medical records, setting up and staffing the battalion aid station in the field, driving the ambulances, and keeping the battalion pharmacy stocked. We had some guys who had served for quite a while in Alaska, and they knew all kinds of tricks that enabled us to set the battalion aid station up as the warmest tent in the field. Given that most of our training took place in sub-freezing temperatures, the aid station was the place to be. We often had officers from the other companies just come and hang out simply to get warm for a little bit. Needless to say, if you could get a position with the aid station squad, you were set for field exercises, far less walking, far more warmth, and a far happier life. There was a fellow line medic in my unit who I'll call Slug because that's the generic term we used in the Army for someone who was a waste of space. I actually liked Slug when I first met him. He was friendly, easygoing, and he seemed to be an all-around nice guy. Over time, my respect for Slug waned more and more. He always seemed to be broke, and he was not shy about asking to borrow money. He gave his girlfriend my phone number because he didn't want to pay to maintain his own, and she would always call me to vent about him on the numerous occasions that she caught him cheating on her. If there was ever work to be done, he always found excuses to be elsewhere. To put things in perspective, avoiding work was a highly respected art form known as shamming in my unit, but there were caveats. Avoiding work at your buddy's expense was frowned upon, and clumsy excuses that put you or your buddies in a bad light were also considered to be in poor taste. For example, getting 4 guys together for vehicle maintenance at the motor pool when in reality, they were each simply going to get on a creeper, a board that rolls under vehicles. For a mid-morning nap was a highly regarded form of shamming. Slug loved to sham, but he was terrible at it. More often than not, his attempts made the rest of us look bad, and they often brought more work on us to boot. For whatever reason, the stars aligned in Slug's favor, and he was given the opportunity to attend SUS driving school for the purposes of driving an ambulance. A SUS is an all-terrain vehicle that was invaluable to us in the snow. This golden opportunity was poised to deliver him from the harsh life of the frontline medic into the luxury life of the rear medic. It just so happened that the first day of driving school happened to fall during the daylight saving switchover. The change was such that anyone forgetting about it would have shown up to work an hour early. Slug thought that he would use this to his advantage to sneak in an extra hour of sleep, seemingly unaware that the change had already brought him an extra hour of sleep. I had just come in from shoveling the snow outside the aid station around 15 minutes before his class was scheduled to start when the following exchange took place between me and the aid station's squad leader. Squad leader, have you seen Slug around today? Me, no, Sergeant, I haven't. Squad leader, can you call him? His driving class is scheduled to start very soon, and he's going to be late. Me, I'll do it right now, Sergeant. Realizing this was urgent, I quickly found his girlfriend's number and called him up. The following conversation then ensued. Me, hey, Slug. Squad leader is asking where you are. Apparently, you have a driving class that's about to start, and you're late for it. Slug, yeah, tell them I forgot about the time change, so I'm running an hour late. Me, knowing that if he had forgotten about the change, he would have been an hour early. Are you sure that's what you want me to tell him? Slug, do you think I'm bullshitting about this or something? Just tell him what I just told you. Me, okay. See you in 15 minutes. So, I hung up and made my way back to squad leader. Me, Sergeant, I just got off the phone with Slug. Squad leader, and me, he said he forgot about the time change and is running an hour late. He'll be heading in soon. Squad leader, do you have a driver's license? Yes, Sergeant. Squad leader, can I see it? I showed him my license. Squad leader, great. Take this packet, head on down to the motor pool, and tell them that there's been a last-minute change of plans. Slug is unable to make today's training session, so you'll be taking his place. And that's how I went from living the miserable life of a line medic to the relatively easygoing life of ambulance driver and guy in charge of the battalion pharmacy. Whenever I'd see Slug in the field, complaining about how cold and miserable the last few days had been, I would commiserate with him, expressing gratitude about how good I had it back at the aid station, with regular meals and near constant warmth. That should have been you, I'd tell him. It's too bad you weren't able to make it to your training on that day. Next one is titled, Laundry or Airline Tickets. Which one's cheaper? Back in the 90s, I worked for an electronics manufacturer in the Midwest. We were bought out by a larger company located on the West Coast. As part of the buyout, the new owners wanted to move some of our production line out west, but since it was for the time highly automated, They needed us software guys to come out and supervise. I spent several months out there sitting on my hands charging, I kid you not, $100/hour. Remember, this was the 90s, because the company was so desperately bad at project management. Seriously, I was out there 6-8 months and never saw a project plan of any sort. But that's not the malicious compliance here. Our general schedule was to fly out on Sunday or Monday, work all week, then fly home on Friday with a suitcase full of dirty clothes. After a couple months, a co-worker and I decided to stick around for a weekend and see the sights. I seem to recall that we paid for the hotel rooms, but memory fades. In any event, I didn't have enough clothes to get through a second week, so I sent my stuff into the hotel laundry and submitted the bill for reimbursement. Come the next week, my expense report was personally delivered to me by a manager who sternly informed me that they would not be paying for my laundry bills. Accordingly, I flew home every weekend after that. A round-trip ticket was easily 3 times as expensive as the hotel room plus laundry. Eventually, I returned home permanently and bought a new car with the money I'd saved from this adventure. They never did get our production line working correctly. Some say it's because their workforce was generally composed of people without high school educations and for whom English was a second language, vs our former workforce, which was somewhat better suited for the operation of the software. I think that sells short the workers. The management was totally capable of tanking the company on their own. Next one is titled, $1.50 per diem food allowance, you got it. This post reminded me of my mom's malicious compliance when it came to travel expenses. Back in the early 2000s, my mom worked for a company that was a subsidiary of a now-defunct telecommunications company we'll call NDJ. NDJ travel expense policy was that she had a $1.50 per diem meal allowance. Thing was, in the long run, she'd spend less than $1.50 per day. She worked as a network administrator, and sometimes she'd have to fly out to Miami, Los Angeles, or wherever else in the US. They had a data center to help set up or repair networks and other things. She would often book a room in an extended stay hotel, the kind that often advertised their rates as being per week. These extended stays often have a kitchenette. Usually they'd have a microwave, a fridge, and a small 2-eye stove, perfect for cooking up some bachelor food. My mom would, on the day of arrival, stop at a local grocery store, Publix, Kroger, and pick up a week's worth, or however long she needed to stay of food. She'd get frozen dinners, sandwich fixings, frozen or fresh fruit, yogurt, and a few pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. The total bill might come to $100, but it would last her the entire week. One day when she submitted her receipts and expense report, accounting ripped her a new one over the $100 grocery bill. They told her, "You're only allowed to spend $1.50 per day, no more." She'd argue that it was food for the entire week. "I save you money." "Doesn't matter. $1.50 a day." Okie dokie, she thought. "You want $1.50 a day. You got it, bucko." The next time she took a trip to Miami or elsewhere, she spent exactly $1.50 a day. She'd stop somewhere cheap like McDonald's or Burger King for breakfast. It's something out of the break room vending machines for lunch, peanut butter crackers and Diet Coke, but it was treat yourself night every night. Red Lobster, Olive Garden, Papadoxie's, fairly pricey Cajun restaurant, or anywhere else that guaranteed a bill of at least $1.25 per person. She'd get the whole shebang. Appetizer, entree, dessert, and a cocktail. Pretty sure the bill ran upwards of $1.40 to $1.50. As long as she stayed within her means, she enjoyed herself. Every damn night. They didn't bat an eye, but when they saw that and compared to what it would have cost on her old system, they told her she could go back to her old system if she so desired. Last one titled, "Just do what the client tells you to do, okay?" I got a job last year at a company that provides services to a large lead-acid battery company. It was a subdivision of a huge corporation that does this in lots of industries, but the industrial side was like the red-headed stepchild. Lots and lots of crazy stories from the 4 short months I was there, but this one was well planned and executed. So, the direct client hated us as we were forced on him by his corporate overlords, and he had had bad experiences in the past, and he didn't hesitate to say it to my face. My team and I were responsible for taking care of certain machinery and nothing else, but my boss had told me point blank to help them out as best I can to help the relationship, but make sure we got paid for any extra work we did. So the client would request things like moving equipment in a rush for a huge project, and I would bend over backwards and hire temps to get the work done on his timeline. I would submit purchase requests and he would email approval. Then when the actual invoice showed up a month later, he would throw a crap fit and go to my boss, or my boss's boss, or scream even higher and never pay. One thing we had that they didn't have access to was a pickup truck and a credit card for incidentals. The battery corporate overlords had determined that their location didn't require such things. Well, they had broken their pressure washer for cleaning powdered lead out of things and ordered a new one. The catch was it was gasoline, and all they had available was diesel on location, due to insurance and corporate requirements. Well, every time they needed gas, they called me in a rush as their precious was down and needed cleaned. Now, huge emergency. Planned maintenance, they forgot to check the gas though. This time, they also busted 2 of the tires trying to move it with a forklift. Now, by the contract, I shouldn't even touch the thing. So, I sent an email to the guy requesting the gas and repair, the tinpot client, and my boss spelling things out. I said plainly that since so many bills had been disputed that I would not do anything until an official PO had been issued, months usually. They issued one right away, so you can do that, didn't know you could, and off I went to go get the tires fixed and the gas. Here is where the malicious compliance really kicked in. When they gave me the credit card, my trainer said only use for travel or emergencies. Anything that could be bought though approved vendors would bring the ire of the VP of accounting. They also had them set to the highest level of warning. If they were even used outside the wrong zip codes, they would lock down and you would get phone calls from accounting. I first took the tires to Billy Bob's used tires and got them fixed. My personal bank had called me when I got one fixed there, as it was such a sketch place with stolen credit cards being used there all the time. Then I went to the sketchiest gas station I know about. Local town oil and sundries. The pump swipes never work and you have to go in and run it manually. So I told them $25 and put $20 in the can, causing a credit and a debit to hit at almost the same time. Literally first thing the next day, I get a meeting invite, including my boss, his boss, the VP of accounting, and the VP of my division. I go into it without a care in the world, as I had already given up on this job. The VP of accounting is asking why I went and got gas, and so I sent him the email with all approvals. Included in that was my explanation of the times we had done extra work and not gotten paid. I had assumed he didn't know about that. My boss did have my back, as it was his boss pushing the play nice. So from that point on, it was sitting back and watching the VP of accounting chew on the fact we were doing work, not getting paid, and bowing down to a little tin pot crap of a client to give us a dark green rating, bonus time for everybody but me. I was out of there in a few weeks, don't know if anything changed, don't care. By the LinkedIn, everybody is still there a year later. Thanks for listening.